Hello, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. It's Sunday, the 1st of May. You're watching 6 News. Our top stories tonight. Exclusive. We speak to one of the candidates in the Queensland seat of Dickson who says he will vote for Peter Dutton if the sitting member legally pledges to commit to democracy, as questions are asked about why the Defence Minister didn't show up to a People's Forum broadcast live right here on 6 News. Plus, Anthony Albanese set to face the tough questions from 6 News on Tuesday night in an interview that's already making headlines as Labor officially launches its campaign in Perth. And later,
we've got close to 500 people in hospital with COVID. We don't need additional people hospitalised with flu.
Authorities warn of a flu resurgence amid reports of a surge in cases, with health officials saying people can still wear a mask in crowded spaces even as Australia continues to move forward to completely living with COVID-19. Good evening. 3 weeks down, 3 weeks to go. The May 21 election is approaching fast, with Labor holding their official campaign launch in Perth today. Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese have agreed to hold a second debate, which will be broadcast on Channel 9, amid criticism about there not being one debate on the ABC. Meanwhile, in Queensland, questions are being raised about why Peter Dutton pulled out of a People's Forum in his electorate of Dickson, broadcast live and exclusively on 6 News. One of the candidates that was there is now speaking out, with Thor Prohaska saying he will vote for the sitting member if Dutton legally pledges to commit to democracy. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the details.
It's been a long few weeks, with press conferences, policy announcements and blunders on the campaign trail. But now Australia is halfway through its election campaign, although it's showing no signs of slowing down anytime soon.
Your vote can change Australia.
After Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese agreed to a second debate next week, Labor today officially launched their campaign at Optus Stadium in Perth.
If you want a future that's more affordable, where everyone gets a fair go and no one gets left behind, vote Labor. I've known Anthony for a long time. He's one of the most senior and experienced figures in the nation. He is resilient. He is authentic. He is the real deal.
The party has had a lot of success in the state in the past 24 months, with a landslide victory for Mark McGowan's government in March 2021.
My fellow Australians, in just 20 days' time, you can vote for a better future. You can choose cheaper childcare, stronger Medicare, and fixing the crisis in aged care.
Labor has only won a majority government once this century, but with the rise of teal independents and minor parties, this election, a hung parliament, is very possible. A number of independent candidates, as well as current MP Zali Steggall, have told 6 News they won't commit to anything yet.
I will deal with everything on its merits. I've been very transparent about my voting record and how I approach legislation, and I'll continue to do that.
In Queensland, questions are being raised as to why Peter Dutton didn't show up to a People's Forum in the seat of Dickson. The forum was broadcast live on 6 News and featured candidates from a number of parties as well as 2 independents. One of those independents is Thor Prohaska, who has now told 6 News exclusively that he will vote for Dutton if a sitting member legally pledges to commit to democracy.
The 99.99% likely outcome is going to say no, but I want him to do it publicly.
However, despite running at multiple elections before, including as a Palmer United Party candidate, Prohaska admitted he wasn't confident at all getting elected.
Extremely unconfident. I still believe in miracles, but the chance of it happening would have to be, somebody gives me $10 million and I'm able to employ 1,000 people and we're able to go out there and, et cetera, et cetera.
Have you received much support from the community to advertise for you?
As in, like, putting up call flutes on their yards,
things
like that.
And helping out with roadside on the weekends or something like that?
No.
Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
And for more on this, let's bring in our political reporter, Roman McKinnon, who was actually there at the Dickson People's Forum. Roman, Peter Dutton didn't show up. Who did?
Yeah, that's right, Leo. Peter Dutton was a no-show at the Dixon's People's Forum earlier this week. Labor's challenger, Peter Dutton's challenger, and Labor's candidate, Ailey France, did show up, as well as Greens candidate, Vinnie Batten, who we did spoke to. Also, the UAP, two independents did show up, as well as Pauline Hanson's One Nations candidate, but the Liberal Democrats candidate was a no-show as well. Now, we were confirmed exclusively that Peter Dutton was not going to be showing up just 10 minutes before it started.
And we saw there just some very interesting comments from Thor Prohaska. He's admitting he's very unconfident in his election chances, but he did actually say he's planning to stand at the 2025 election.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I was not expecting that answer to my question at all. Very unlikely that he's going to win. But he did say he will step in at the next federal election. As I did mention, it is quite interesting to have a candidate have that much confidence to win. And he also did say that if a candidate is somewhat better than me, has better policies on democracy, then I will stop and I'll vote for them, basically.
Now, the other big exclusive here on 6 News, Anthony Albanese, of course, agreeing to do an interview with 6 News that will air Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Just for viewers who might be unaware, what was the process in actually finally getting him on and even getting a response from his team?
Yeah, Leo, it's been a long time coming for this Anthony Albanese interview. Once we did Scott Morrison's interview, by the way, we did contact them both at around February, early February, late January, of course, 2022. But as I mentioned, a long time coming. We've had to go through, as you mentioned, a lot of contacts, a lot of media advisors, a lot of communications officers, just quite a few people. But it's definitely a very exciting time for us as the Scott Morrison interview went live. Everyone was saying, "Where's Albo? Where's Albo?" And here it is. But yeah, we've tried to catch all 3 of the 4 leaders. We're trying to get on the Nationals leader. Of course, that's Barnaby Joyce. So Barnaby, if you're free, then come on.
And the promo did show a question from yourself about him saying that he's not Scott Morrison, he doesn't run away from press conferences, but then walked out of one after just 8 minutes days later. He defended those comments though, didn't he?
Yeah, it's again quite interesting that he sort of did break his promise, but he's defending himself. Well, how can you sort of trust Anthony Albanese if he breaks his promise and then defends it, of course? But he's been called a liberal light and of course by everyone on social media, but there's also been quite a lot of support for Anthony Albanese, so we really don't know how this federal election will play out.
And just finally, the latest edition of SPINCHECK is out now, where we too take a look at the rise of the so-called teal independents. We're speaking to Zali, Steggall, Monique, Zoe Daniel and Allegra Spender, as well as Greens candidate Piers Mitcham. For those who missed it, where can they actually watch it?
Yeah, well, that SPINCHECK special is available on our YouTube page. Just search 6 News Australia and, of course, our website, 6newsau.com. And another special announcement, our SPINCHECK specials leading up to the federal election will air every single Friday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Right, we'll leave it there. Political reporter Roman McKinnon, great to catch up as always. And for our list of candidates that have resigned this election, been disendorsed or have been ruled ineligible, you can now check that out on our website, 6newsau.com, where we've got a dedicated page set up. That website, again, is 6newsau.com. We'll be live on election night, Saturday, May 21, with live coverage as well. To other news tonight, and authorities have warned of a flu resurgence amid reports of a surge in cases. Health authorities have recommended people get their flu shot, saying people can still do things like wear a mask in crowded spaces, even as Australia moves completely towards living with COVID-19. Reporter Austin Pollock has more.
With life slowly starting to get back to normal, experts are warning that the flu will return with a vengeance this winter. cases were at some of their lowest levels thanks to COVID-19 restrictions, but with our domestic and international borders reopening, it's likely we'll see more influenza cases this dangerous winter, while COVID-19 restrictions begin to withdraw and people start to get life back to normal. Victoria are already in the grips of this season. In the past few days, they've recorded more cases than the whole of last year.
It may not be the worst season, but it'll absolutely be worse than last year and indeed 2020.
Last year, there was not one case recorded nationally in Australia until August. In 2021, there were around 600 confirmed flu cases according to the National Notifiable Disease Surveillance System, and this year, over 1,000 cases and counting in the first 4 months, and authorities are warning that it may get worse with a mix of COVID and pressures on the hospital system if cases reach the same level as 2019.
Prepare for the worst case scenario of flu and COVID coming together.
We've got close to 500 people in hospital with COVID. We don't need additional people hospitalised with flu.
Authorities right across the country are warning to continue to practice simple hygiene methods and to get the influenza vaccine, which is available to everyone and free for certain vulnerable people. It really is our best defence against this virus. A full list of information can be found on the Department of Health website. Austin Pollock, 6 News.
New South Wales Independent MP Alex Greenwich has backed down from his threat to withdraw supply to the state government amid the ongoing public debate about transgender people being involved in sports. The New Daily reports Mr Greenwich warned he would abandon the minority government, describing the discourse surrounding the issue as a farce and a scare campaign. But following a meeting with Premier Dominic Perrottet held alongside a number of advocates, the member for Sydney withdrew his threat to cut off supply. The Perrottet government is currently reliant on support from the crossbench. Attorneys for Ghislaine Maxwell have had their request for her sex trafficking charges to be dismissed denied. Maxwell was last year convicted on 5 federal offences, including sex trafficking of a minor, transporting a minor with the intent to engage in illegal sexual activity, and 3 conspiracy counts. Her sentencing is scheduled for June 28. Staying overseas, the fallout from Elon Musk buying Twitter is tonight continuing. Some users say they will leave the platform as a result of it, with some employees also threatening similar. However, there are some who say the news has convinced them to stay on and they want Donald Trump's account reinstated. But does the former US president even want to return to the platform he used to be so dominant on? US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has the latest.
Well, Leo, Elon Musk, the world's richest man, is buying Twitter in a deal valued at $44 billion. Now, Musk previously tried to buy Twitter. He offered a deal to them, and they then adopted the poison pill, which would make it harder for him to take over. However, after much negotiation and talk with Musk, the board unanimously ultimately approved a deal for Musk to take over the social media platform and take it private for $44 billion. Again, he's the world's richest man, so $44 billion might not be very much to him. Although after this, there was outrage on many fronts, mostly from people on the left here in the U.S., because Musk bids himself as a free speech absolutist. And so many on the left believe that he is going to allow disinformation and misinformation to run rampant on the platform instead of doing censorship, which Twitter, of course, is under fire all the time for doing right now, or, building their algorithms in a way in which they demote content that they disagree with. That's at least what some people perceive it as. But in any case, Musk says he is for free speech. He doesn't think there should be the censorship deal going on, which Twitter is accused of time and time again. And then you have the folks on the left who are concerned that this is going to allow for more misinformation to run rampant on the platform. So at any rate, we'll see how that comes to fruition. But I did want to mention that after this deal, Musk sold $8.5 billion worth of Tesla shares, of course. Tesla, very big with Musk. He's the chief executive there at Tesla. And he sold $8.5 billion worth of shares days after he agreed to buy Twitter. Now, the sale did lead to some believing that that will be the way he's going to finance his planned buyout of Twitter. And he then tweeted afterward that he has no further sales planned after today. But the shares in Tesla, they did fall rapidly. Earlier in the week, they fell because so many people thought that Musk would sell his stake in the car maker in order to fund his deal, which again is speculation, and a lot of people continuing to see what's going to be happening with that. But anyways, filings to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, according to BBC News, do indicate that Musk sold a total of 9.6 million Tesla shares this week, and the billionaire, though, still owns more than 15% of the company. So a lot of news on the Musk front here. It remains to be seen what Elon Musk will do with Twitter. It's probably going to take a little bit of time, maybe a lot of time perhaps, for this deal to completely go through. It is very complex. It is complex because there are so many angles, and this guy has so much information about him, and it's really intricate to follow. But we're working to stay on top of the latest for you, and I'll continue to monitor all of that from right here in the U.S. I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you.
Returning to the federal election now, Wentworth candidate Allegra has defended comments she made in support of Israel last month amid claims she's a right-winger pretending to be a progressive. Ms Spender is running in Liberal member Dave Sharma's seat of Wentworth and is one of several teal independents hoping to get elected at this month's election. Speaking to 6 News' SPINCHECK, she responded to those allegations and said she does describe herself as a progressive.
I would see myself as very socially progressive, and I'm a very inclusive person. That's and certainly those are the values. That's certainly the values of me, and that is values of my campaign. And I don't see there's any contradiction in terms of my opposition of the BDS movement, nor of support of Israel, because this is about social progression and inclusion, and those are the values that I stand for. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I guess there are, and I've seen, progressives when you put out that statement recently over on, I think it was Instagram, when you mentioned the BDS movement there were some who said, that's not what a progressive is normally like. What do you then make? I got to ask you of the Amnesty International report saying what Israel is doing to Palestinians is or amounts to a crime against humanity.
Yeah. So what I say is, what I would say across to all these issues, which is to say that, I've been really clear that I oppose the BDS movement, and I'm really clear on that. I think it's neither constructive, in terms of actually creating people's rights, and also at the same time, it's supported by groups who are saying that Israel should not exist, and that's not how I see it. I think that's a fundamental issue. I support the government's view, the Australian government's view, that we should have the goal is to have a two-state solution in the Middle East, and that would be the best outcome, for both Israelis and also for Palestinian people. And that's absolutely what I support, and I feel very strongly about that, and that's what I will absolutely advocate for.
And if you want to see the full SPINCHECK episode, The Rise of the Teal Independents, you can check that out on our YouTube channel and our website, 6newsau.com. And now is Arvin and Melly with a look what's coming up later tonight on WAMN News.
Thanks, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, Pauline Hanson comes to Western Australia. We have exclusive details on what her trip will entail.
Also tonight, Labor's historic campaign launch in Western Australia as Albanese aims to steal Liberal votes. An extensive analysis from Peter Kennedy.
Campaign for change, an update for WA's leading human rights activists bid for the Senate. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Hi, thanks both Arvin and Melly there. Now to tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country. Brisbane partly cloudy, 24, 22 in Sydney, starting the day just 6 in the nation's capital Canberra, getting to a top of 19 later in the day, 22 in Melbourne, Hobart, partly cloudy, 20, sunny 21 in Adelaide, 26 in Alice Springs, Perth, getting to a top of 23, and in Darwin a warm top of 34. And before we go tonight, just a quick programming note. Tuesday at 8 p.m. Australian Standard Time, Anthony Albanese will speak to us here on Uncensored, where he'll go in depth about Labor's vision, how they can potentially win the election, and plenty of other issues. It's probably the most requested interview we've ever had, and it's great to be able to do it following a number of delays. Then Wednesday at 8 p.m. Australian Standard Time, a new edition of Fact Check, where we take a look at preferential voting amid the upcoming election, including false claims about the Greens in terms of their preference deals and what exactly is a preference deal. We'll look at all that. And Friday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, the new edition of SPINCHECK, our Senate special, where we speak to 5 different candidates from 5 different parties in different states about why they're running, issues that are important to them, and how the Senate could play a part in this year's election, because there's a lot of talk about how the crossbench will affect the potential hung parliament in the House of Representatives. But let's talk about the Senate. That is Friday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. All programs available on our YouTube channel and our website, 6newsau.com. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with the latest headlines by heading to our website, 6newsau.com, and by following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. Just search 6 News AU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.